Don't touch me. If you're here to use me too, then just leave." Elsie May said it before she even looked up, her voice raw, coarse, and stripped of hope. She was bent over a low wooden table in a sunburned Wyoming field, wrists tied, ankles bound, dress pulled out of place by force. The wood beneath her was hot. The rope bit into her skin with every breath. Summer heat pressed down hard, thick and unmoving. Back in the late 1880s out here in Wyoming territory, a man could call almost anything family business, and most folks would look away. Her legs trembled not from weakness, but from knowing exactly what usually came next. Behind her, Virgil May moved slowly, deliberately, like a man savoring control. To him, this was discipline, ownership, a lesson meant to last. A hired hand stood nearby, eyes locked on the dirt, pretending not to see. A woman from the neighboring ranch whispered once, then fell silent. No one stepped in. No one ever did. Elsie swallowed and spoke again, her voice shaking now. "Don't take advantage. Don't stick it in." She waited for laughter, for rough hands, for pain. Instead there was silence. A shadow stretched across the field, long and unmoving. Hooves stood as still near the fence line. Elsie turned her head just enough to see him. A man on horseback, older, broad-shouldered, his beard streaked with grey. His eyes were fixed on her, not hungry, not curious, but hard with something she could not name. Thomas Granger had stopped without meaning to. He had been riding toward Laramie, mind on the road when he saw the table, the ropes, and the way the girl held herself, like she was bracing for a blow. She had already learned by heart. Medicine Bow sat west of town. A long ride and a lonely one. He did not speak. He only watched. Elsie misunderstood the stillness. She always did. Her breath hitched and she whispered, almost pleading now, "If you're thinking about it, don't, please. I'm not worth it." The words burned worse than the rope. Years of being used had taught her that help never came without a price. Virgil finally noticed the stranger and turned, irritation flashing across his face. "This is family business," he said sharply. Thomas said nothing. His jaw tightened. His eyes never left Elsie. For a moment the world seemed to hold its breath. The flies buzzed. The grass swayed. Then Thomas turned his horse slowly. Deliberately, he rode toward town without a word. Elsie felt something crack inside her chest. Hope maybe, or fear? She did not know if that man was leaving her to her fate, or if he was about to bring something far worse down on her head. Was that rider her last chance at freedom, or had she just mistaken another predator for a savior? Thomas Granger did not ride far before he pulled his horse to a halt, the decision settling in his bones like a weight he could no longer carry, because he had seen that look before in places men pretended not to remember, and he knew that silence was a kind of cruelty. So he turned back, spurred his horse hard, dust kicking up as he thundered into the field, his voice cutting through the heat like a blade when he told Virgil to step away. Not loud, not pleading, but final. The kind of tone that came from a man who had buried too many regrets already. Virgil laughed at first, puffing his chest, calling it family business again. But Thomas slid down from the saddle and stood between Virgil and the table, broad shoulders blocking the sun, his eyes cold as riverstone. And when Virgil reached for him, Thomas moved faster than expected, knocking the man back into the dirt with one solid strike that carried years of restraint behind it. The hired hand finally fled, boots scrambling, and the woman from the neighboring ranch covered her mouth, shocked into soundlessness. Elsie squeezed her eyes shut, waiting for something else to follow, because kindness had never come clean in her life, but instead she felt the ropes loosen, careful hands working the knots without hurry, without touching where they did not need to. And when the last binding fell away, Thomas draped his coat around her shoulders, turning his back while she gathered herself, giving her dignity before she had to ask for it. Virgil sputtered threats from the ground, swearing law and blood, but Thomas answered him then quietly, telling him that Laramie had judges who did not enjoy hearing about tables and ropes in open fields, and that Medicine Bow had men who remembered favors, and that some lessons lasted longer when spoken in courtrooms, instead of whispered behind barns. He lifted Elsie onto the saddle, steady as stone, and she clutched the horn with shaking hands. Still unsure if the ground beneath her was real, still waiting for the cost to be named. But Thomas only led the horse, walking beside her toward town, telling her she did not owe him anything, not her body, not her gratitude, not her silence. And something inside her shifted at that, a small, fragile thing daring to breathe. As the miles stretched out and the sun dipped lower, Elsie realized that freedom did not arrive like thunder the way stories promised. It came quietly, with a man who turned back when it would have been easier not to. And with each step, her fear loosened its grip, replaced by a cautious hope she did not yet trust but could no longer deny. Because for the first time in her life, someone had seen her pain and chosen to stand in front of it, instead of looking away.